welcome. I want to welcome you to yet another episode of the Unpopular Podcast. This is your boy Jalen, and this is where I give my unpopular opinion about sports. So a couple things. I know last time I said that I'm going to take a little break, and I wasn't going to do a podcast or do another episode until 2019. I know I said that. The thing is, though, I didn't really like how the last podcast went about. Well, there's a couple things. One, like I said, I didn't really like how the last podcast went about. You can't bat 1,000 every time. I'm pretty good at this, I believe, but you can't bat 1,000 every time. I stumbled a couple times. I messed up a little bit, but I have free time. I was like, let me do this. Another thing was, and shouts out to my boy Gene. Gene was like, yo, you should do a list, a top 5 list of players, great players that was affected by injury. I said, you know what, Gene? You're right. I'm going to do that. So, I don't know if you watched last episode. Hopefully y'all did. Unpopular Podcast. You can watch it on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, and iTunes. But on the last episode, I gave my top 12 all-decade plus team, well, from years 2000 to 2019, almost 2 decades, I guess. I gave my team, I gave 12 players, I gave a couple of honorable mentions. This time, I'm going to do my all-injury team. And it's not going to be from 2019. It's just going to be my, 5 players I think careers were absolutely ruined by injury. Now, like I said, last episode I gave y'all 12. I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just give y'all 5 with a couple honorable mentions. But without further ado, here is my all-NBA injury team. And there's the thing about injury, man. Some of these players did find success. Some of these players are, still have stuff going for them, but from when they got injured to where they were at the end of their career, or where they currently hold, or where they currently are, it is drastically different. And you can look no further than because of injury. Injury sucks, man. And these players either were game changers or could have been game changers, you know what I mean? So, without further ado, I always got to have honorable mentions. I kind of cheat all the time. I cheat all the time, man. I give a couple honorable mentions, and because they might have just almost missed. Oh, one thing. Before I keep going, I got a couple people that said from my last podcast, why did I not put Vince Carter and Jason Kidd? I even did a whole episode about Jason Kidd. Look, man, they're great players. I just didn't put them in my honorable mentions because my honorable mentions would have been too long. Like, I thought of Vince Carter. I thought of Jason Kidd. Like, come on, man. I know I didn't put them in, but I'm not taking away from the fact that they're still great players. So, don't. I had 3 people to come to me and say that. So, again, Vince Carter and Jason Kidd are great players, blah, blah, blah. I'm on this episode now. So one honorable mention I have for the all-injury team is Yao Ming. I've been very vocal in saying that I don't think Yao Ming he deserved to be in the Hall of Fame due to his impact that he had on basketball when we talk about the overseas aspect and how he pretty much brought a whole country to the United States, to the NBA. But Yao Ming was a good player. Yao Ming, alongside Tracy McGrady, was a dynamic duo that was crazy. The only thing about Yao Ming is he pretty much destroyed his feet, man, or his foot. His foot pretty much exploded, almost like split in half. And here's the thing about being 7'3", 7'4", and being that tall, man. It's not natural. And you see with a lot of 7-footers, especially towards the end of their career, they have a lot of feet problems. And Yao Ming was not the exception. He was he was it. His career ended so early due to injury, and he got injured a lot, especially towards the end. And almost all of them had to do with feet. Do I think Yao Ming would have been like on Shaq's level? No. But Yao Ming was a very productive player. And Yao Ming was one of two anchors on that Houston Rockets team that was primed to go deep in the playoffs multiple years. I mean, you have T-Mac, you have Shane Battier, you have Ron Artest, you have Luis Scola when he was good. Like, that team was predicated on Yao Ming and T-Mac being good. And unfortunately, Yao Ming foot exploded. And that's what you got. That's how you got what you got. I think Yao Ming would have been a lot better than he was at the end of his career. And yes, he's a Hall of Famer, but he's more of a Hall of Famer due to the fact that, the culture that he brought to the NBA. And I don't think his play would have, even if he didn't get injured, I don't think his play would have brought him to the Hall of Fame. But he would have been a lot more productive than he was. My next honorable mention had to go to Bill Walton. And see, here's the thing about Bill Walton. He did win a couple championships with the Celtics. But Bill Walton was arguably the greatest college basketball player we've ever seen. Being at UCLA, he could do anything on the court. And early in the NBA, he could do anything he wanted on the court too, to be a big man. But like Yao Ming and like most big men, he started getting he had a lot of foot problems and a lot of back problems, to the point where there were games, he said, that at halftime he had to, just like Larry Bird, he had to lay down. He said there was times when after games he couldn't walk for like 2 days because his feet were hurting that much. Now, again, when he was in Portland, he unfortunately, like I said, hurt his feet a couple times, and he did ultimately end up winning a championship with the Celtics. But Bill Walton was before the injury, was one of the greatest players ever. Yeah, he's crazy now with the whole. He's just wild now. If you listen to some of the things he say and how he's wild at this point. But that's not taken away from how great he was on the basketball court. Do I think Bill Walton? I think Bill Walton was so good. He could be. You know how people have like Mount Rushmores and greatest of all times and stuff? If Bill Walton would have never got injured, he might have been on a lot of people's Mount Rushmore. It's just his feet failed him, and injuries really debilitated him. And my last honorable mention, I'm only having 3 honorable mentions, it's Chris Paul, and I'm gonna tell you why. Chris Paul is one of the best point guards we've ever seen, especially when we're talking about little point guards. I don't want to disrespect anybody, but little point guards. He's feisty. He's great offensively. He scraps defensively. But what is the biggest knock that we have on Chris Paul? He has never made it to the NBA Finals, and he's never won a championship. Now, yes, a lot of people have never won a championship, and that's understandable. But when we think about Chris Paul, that is the number one criticism that we have on him. Just like that's the number one criticism we have with Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony never made it to the finals and never won a championship. Same as Chris Paul. But the reason why I put him on the all-injury team is because injuries really affected that. A lot of people don't talk about that, but injuries really affected that. Look at last year. They were one game away from making it to the finals. And I think if they would have made it to the finals, they would have beat the Cavaliers and LeBron James. because that Houston Rockets team last year was loaded, and they went into the playoffs with the number one seed. But what happens? He pulls his hamstring. Golden State then wins the next 2 games. They make it to the finals. Golden State does. You remember a couple years ago when Chris Paul was on the Clippers, and he was going against OKC, and they had the squad to beat Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and OKC. What happens? He tears his ligament in his thumb, I believe, and now he's out. They lose. OKC advances. Or a couple years before that, when it seems the whole Clippers got injured. You know what I mean? Chris Paul, and I remember Blake Griffin got injured that year. Chris Paul broke his hand. That's what happened. He broke his hand against the Trailblazers. He broke his hand against the Trailblazers. Blake Griffin broke something or hurt himself too. They lose to the Blazers. It's like, yes, Chris Paul, there have been times when he just collapsed. But I feel that injuries have affected his career more than a lot of people want to give credit to. Sometimes I don't give credit to, because I'm like, yo, Chris Paul, he's a little overrated. But then I had to really sit and look like injuries really played a part in his career. In fact, I don't think Chris Paul has ever played more than 75 games. Due to injury, not due to like rest. Due to injury. Hell, he's injured now. He pulled his hamstring again. And now he's sitting out for the Rockets. So, yes, Chris Paul's great. Yes, Chris Paul more than likely will be in the Hall of Fame. Yes, Chris Paul has had a great career. But injuries have played a significant part in his career. So, and honestly, I think his window for a championship is, unless he like goes and plays with LeBron or something, or Golden State, I think he might have a chance. But then even that, he just signed a 4-year deal with the Houston Rockets. Like, who's gonna want Chris Paul at age like 48 making $44 million for their team? So I think he's stuck with Houston, or Houston stuck with him. It's vice versa. And again, I'm not saying this to say that Chris Paul is a bad player. And I'm not saying this to say that injuries took away a great player or anything, but they did take away great moments for Chris Paul. And I feel that if some of them instances when if he would not have gotten injured, I think he would have made it to at least the finals. I don't know if he would have won, but at least last year I think he would have won. Because that Cleveland team was weak, man. And Houston, as well as Golden State, was just like leaps and bounds better than better than Cleveland. So that's my honorable mention injuries team, and let's get started. So injuries suck, and the thing about injuries, you really can't control them. Like, you can't be like, all right, I'm not gonna get injured today. A lot of them are freak of nature injuries. A lot of them recur a lot. A lot of there's nothing you could have possibly done. And we've seen careers or great players' careers get shattered or get forever altered due to injuries. And that brings me to my number one player. And I'm not saying number one is like I'm ranking them. I'm just saying 5 players, right? That goes to my first player that his career was completely affected by injury, and that's Derrick Rose. Yes, Derrick Rose is playing now, but let me just rattle off some things about Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose won the Rookie of the Year in 2008, 2009. He became the youngest MVP ever in 2010 and 2011. And in 2010 and 2011, there wasn't even a discussion. Derrick Rose was the most athletic point guard we've ever seen. from his highlight dunks to the way he contorts his body to make crazy layups. We never saw a player like Derrick Rose. If Derrick Rose would have continued on that trajectory, he would have been a no-brainer Hall of Famer. One of my episodes I did in the podcast, I talked about how Derrick Rose, to me, at least should be considered for the Hall of Fame. Not just because of what he did on the court, but his global presence and the love that so many people have for Derrick Rose, just like Yao Ming. But we should have never had that conversation if it wasn't for injury. Derrick Rose tore his meniscus in the 2012 playoffs, and it's been downhill since. The man had ACL injuries, eye injuries, ankle injuries, wrist injuries. His body piled so many injuries. He had to step. Remember when he pretty much went ghost for New York? Like, they didn't even know where the hell he went. And he said he was dealing with some mental and family issues. And then he had to leave. He had to take an absence from the Cleveland Cavaliers last year, pretty much for the same thing. He didn't know if he wanted to retire or not. He had to get his mind together. See, Derrick Rose, I think at this moment, like he's sort of had a resurgence, and I think that he will win the Sixth Man of the Year this year. Which, shouts out to him. But think about that. Just think about that. Derrick Rose would have became, if which I hope he does, wins the Sixth Man of the Year. Derrick Rose would be the only NBA MVP in NBA history to go from winning an MVP to a Sixth Man of the Year. Wow, that is a great feat to win another, Sixth Man of the Year. That's also shows just how much his career has changed. In fact, even if you look now, he's playing great. Had a 50-point game this year, had a couple 30-point games. I believe last night he dropped 24, 25. But if you think about it, I think Derrick Rose has only had one dunk this year. The same Derrick Rose that's known for his athleticism, dunking on people. Remember when he dunked on Gordon Dragic? He dunked on Joel Anthony. He's dunked on a couple people, and he was known to be a high flyer. At his small stature, he was known to be a high flyer. We haven't. I think we've maybe seen him dunk once this year. Do I think Derrick Rose's career is over? Clearly not. I think he is going to win the Sixth Man of the Year. I would hope he wins the Sixth Man of the Year because it's pretty tight this year. But injuries really robbed us of a once-in-a-generation player. Now, yes, we have Russell Westbrook and everything, but hell, even Russell Westbrook's dealing with some injuries at this point. Because when you play at that style, you're really susceptible to injuries. And it was really some BS's when he tore his meniscus. And this is why I kind of look at Tom Thibodeau a little differently. Not saying, he's still a great coach. He'll still go down as a great coach, but he tore his meniscus in garbage time in the playoffs. I remember they were destroying the Sixers. Derrick Rose didn't even need to be in the game. But as he was in the game, he went up for a layup, boom, tore his meniscus. And he tore his ACLs. He tore another meniscus. I believe he broke his eye bone. Had a lot of ankle injuries, wrist injuries. Like, Derrick Rose has just been through it all, man. And injuries really robbed us of a great, great player. Think about it like this. You watched. I'm trying to put in context. You see how you ever been, here we go. You ever know somebody that is just full of life and that just throws caution to the wind and just lives life? And situations after situations after situations happen to them, And then you look at them now, and it's just like they're a shell of themselves. That is Derrick Rose. Yes, Derrick Rose is still a really good player. Again, and I can't stress this enough. I hope he wins Sixth Man of the Year because he's already came out and said that he's going for it. And he's played great. But Derrick Rose is not the Derrick Rose of old. Derrick Rose is nowhere close to 2010, 2011 Derrick Rose. And then not just age. I understand you'd be like, whoa, Jalen, that was 9 years ago. No, it's not just that. It's injuries have really struck his body and struck his mind. Like, think about it. He's been on the Bulls. He's been on the Knicks. He's been on Cleveland. For a minute, he wasn't on a team because nobody wanted him. Until Tom Thibodeau went to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then they picked him up. And now he's had a resurgent year. It's just if it wasn't for injury, Derrick Rose would be looked at completely different. In a good way. Now, to me, Derrick Rose is more of a sad story of what could have been instead of what is. So, that's D Rose, man. And I'm still a fan of D Rose, man. But I see what people see, man. I don't expect Derrick Rose to do no flashy dunks. Now, he does still make acrobatic layups and everything, which is great. He's a better shooter now, which I definitely like. But it's not the Derrick Rose of old. The second player on my list is Penny Hardaway. Before Magic Johnson, it was unheard of a 6'7", 6'9", 6'10" point guard. Magic Johnson is to me, the greatest point guard ever. Penny Hardaway had the opportunity to be in that echelon. Penny Hardaway was 6'7", coming out of Memphis, and he was everything that Magic Johnson wasn't. I'm not saying that to say Magic Johnson was trash or Penny Hardaway was better than Magic Johnson. I'm not saying that at all. Penny Hardaway was better offensively than him. Yes, Magic Johnson was better assist-wise, but Penny Hardaway could dish the ball like it was nobody's business, man. Penny Hardaway played defense. Penny Hardaway was Penny Hardaway. People don't really understand how great Penny Hardaway was. Penny Hardaway with Shaq beat the Bulls when Jordan came back, but led the Orlando Magic to the finals. Where ultimately, we all know about Nick the Brick Anderson and the 4 missed free throws and stuff like that, but they lost to the Rockets. But Penny Hardaway was the truth, man. You know it was the truth when you have commercials talking about Little Penny. Like, people are still wearing phone posits, people still wearing pennies. Like, Penny was cold, man. Penny Hardaway was sort of like, could have been so much for the culture, Again, he could have been a hybrid Magic Johnson. That's what I usually call him before everything happened. He was a hybrid Magic Johnson. Better, no, he wasn't as tall as Magic and he wasn't as big as Magic, but he was definitely better offensively. He still had the vision and can pass, sort of similar to Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson was better, but Penny still had the eye for assists. And he was flashy. He was great. The thing was, he was robbed by injury. Knee injuries killed his career. And knee injuries, if you saw that 30 for 30 that was talking about the Magic, that's one reason why Shaq left. One, because there was a little jealousy between Penny Hardaway and Shaq, but also Penny Hardaway injuries started to pile up, especially a lot of knee injuries started piling up. And especially towards the end of his career. Since the knee injuries happened, he was never the same. Penny Hardaway. Like, People expected. If it wasn't for Penny, and most of these players, if they're not in the Hall of Fame, that's on my list, or going to be in the Hall of Fame, they could have been if it wasn't for injuries. This is how good they were. But now Penny Hardaway is not going to touch the Hall of Fame, I don't believe. Derrick Rose, as unfortunate as it is, he's not going to touch the Hall of Fame. It just sucks, man. Penny Hardaway had the opportunity to be one of the greatest point guards to ever play. And sort of how Magic Johnson was an outlier, Penny Hardaway was an outlier as well. Nobody except for Magic Johnson saw a 6'7" point guard. In fact, it was Magic Johnson and then it was Penny. There was nothing in between that saw a 6'9" to 6'7" or 6'7" to 6'9" point guard have handles like they did, assist like they did, score like Penny Hardaway did, and just lead a team like they did. But injuries, man. Knee injuries cost Penny another trip to the finals. Cost Penny and Orlando final appearances. Then he got traded to Phoenix, I remember. That didn't work out. Just Penny Hardaway's career just went into shambles after his knee injuries. And it's crazy how most of these people on my list, you hear injuries. You don't hear injury. Except for Yao Ming. Yao Ming had like one huge injury. But it's crazy. It's crazy just how we forget about Penny Hardaway. And I think that's definitely due to injuries. Penny Hardaway was the dude, man. Penny Hardaway was that man. Look, foam posits are my favorite shoe of all time. I don't know if it's because I'm from DMV. I don't know, but I love foam posits are my favorite shoe of all time. I take foam posits over Jordans. I know that's a hot scolding take, but that's me. And I loved watching Penny Hardaway highlights, man. Penny Hardaway was different. Now, no, I don't have the body type like Penny Hardaway. I'm not as tall as Penny Hardaway. I'm not Penny Hardaway. And I just like watching him. You know what I'm saying? It was cool. He was a great player. And I'm not taking nothing away from that guy. Penny Hardaway was that dude. Which brings me to my next player. Magic Johnson. Tracy McGrady. I alluded to him last episode when I was talking about honorable mentions with the top two-decade team. But the reason why I said I couldn't put him because he got injured way too much. And it was really back injuries. He dealt with back spasms a lot, dealt with ankle injuries, dealt with shoulder injuries. Think about it. Tracy McGrady. There was a thing going around on Twitter and Instagram, putting him up like it was a 1v1 between him and Kevin Durant. That should show you just how great of a scorer he was. If that is debatable, that you can put T-Mac next to arguably the greatest scorer ever, one of the greatest scorers ever in Kevin Durant. T-Mac would have, now he's in the Hall of Fame now, but he would have went down as one of the greatest scorers of all time. He probably still does, but y'all remember he scored 13 points in 13 points in like 9 seconds, 10 seconds, or a minute or something like that. Probably a minute, 13, I don't know. I just think if it wasn't for the back injuries and shoulder injuries, he would have went to the finals. He never went to the finals. He had a stacked Rockets team, but he kept getting injured. And it was like, oh! Yo! I just remembered. Yo, I'm sorry, a little side note. Let me tell y'all why I hated my nurse, man. My school nurse. I don't know why I just thought about this, but I know I'm going on a little tangent, but hey, this is my podcast. And thanks for listening. Yo, this is why I hated my nurse. She did, and I'm not gonna say her name because she's probably a fabulous nurse. I don't know, but she just sucked towards me. I remember, every time I would get hurt or I would feel sick, she ain't do nothing. In fact, boom. So I fractured my ankle in PE. We were playing basketball. I went up for a rebound. This one guy, he fell, or I don't know how. Somebody, I guess, he took his legs out from under him. His whole body fell on my ankle. Boom, fractured. The thing is, it was a hairline fracture at that point. I kept playing on it, adrenaline rushing at that point. Like, damn. All right, I twisted my ankle. That's what I thought. But it was like, I felt a pop and it was hot. It felt a little different, but adrenaline's pumping. I just tied my shoe a little tighter. I'm limping, but I'm playing. Once PE's over, I could barely walk, bro. I could barely walk. And I'm like, yo, what's going on? So I go to the nurse. At this point, my ankle is the size of a baseball. She looks at it and says, looks like you twisted your ankle. I said, yeah, I guess. But at this point, like, it looks a little different. Like, it's purple. And it's the size of a baseball. She's like, looks like you twisted your ankle. Here, take 2 minutes. And at this, now, a little bit of context. It was the last period of the day, but still. Like in about 10-15 minutes, the bell was gonna ring. It was 8th period. The bell's gonna ring. Boom. You go to the buses, go home. But still, she says, and I quote, well, Jalen, take 2 minutes and you can go back to class. I look at her like, 2 minutes? All right. Took the 2 minutes. I'm limping. In fact, it got so bad that once I got off the bus, I had to crawl to my house. It was embarrassing as hell, but I couldn't walk. Turns out, I get to the nurse. I get to the doc. At this point, and I'm not trying to be racist, but black people don't go to the doctor unless they really need to. Like, really need to. And I knew something was wrong. So I was like, I'm over crying to my mom, yo, please take me to the hospital. I go to the hospital, boom. They said I was like inches away from a complete break. I said, see, I have a fractured lip. See, she cost me my junior year, man, in basketball, bro. I'm not saying she could have done anything, but she could have let a nigga know, man. Damn, see, that's why I hate school. Well, not all school nurses are bad, but but back to the thing. And I say that this is why I went on a tangent. Now, like I said, Tracy McGrady is one of the greatest scorers ever, but this goes to my fourth player, Grant Hill. Grant Hill blames his career going the way it did due to a misdiagnosis from Orlando, which I understand. They were saying, is his ankle wasn't as bad as, he was good. It really wasn't an ankle injury. It was pretty much all in his head. And because they said he pretty much destroyed his ankle. And what he should have never, like, once he went there the first time, they should have shut him down the whole season. But no, they said, no, you can keep playing. They called it a twist. No, it was a whole, his ankle was destroyed. But Orlando misdiagnosed him. They gave him 2 minutes. They gave him 2 minutes. God, man, that's all she did. I remember I had a stomach virus in school, man, and she gave me 2 minutes. They sent me back to class. Like, what the But Grant Hill was the first LeBron James. In fact, I'm a North Carolina fan through and through. Like, I bleed Tar Heel Nation and everything. There's only 2 Duke players in my entire life that I can say I don't hate. One of them is Kyrie Irving. But he doesn't really count. He only played like 9 games and was like, yeah, I'm too good for this. I'm injured. Let me just sit out for the rest of this. And Grant Hill. Grant Hill could do like LeBron James. Grant Hill can do everything on the court. Play defense. He was bigger than most players. He could score. He was better at shooting threes than LeBron. Even though 3-pointers weren't as emphasized back then as it was now, he's a better shooting LeBron. He could assist. He was a team like he was the first LeBron. But people don't understand how great Grant Hill was. Like, people look like, okay. Like, when people think of Grant Hill, they think of a couple things. They think of the trade that people hated for, when he was put in the trade. He blames Detroit, not Orlando. I was thinking Orlando because he got traded to Orlando for, in that deal. It was like a deal that brought him to Orlando and people hated it. Because he wasn't the same. He wasn't the Grant Hill that was projected. He wasn't the college Grant Hill. He wasn't the early Detroit Pistons Grant Hill. But Detroit Pistons really botched his injury and misdiagnosed it, and that ruined his career. But Grant Hill was it, bruh. Grant Hill was it. Grant Hill played alongside T-Mac, but he kept getting injured. And then T-Mac was like, yo, I can't do this. Look, there's really nothing for me in Orlando. That's why he went to Houston. Like, people, and this is most of these people on this list. Yes, T-Mac's in the Hall of Fame. Yes, we're watching D. Rose now. But you look at Grant Hill, you look at T-Mac, you look at Penny Hardaway, you look at D. Rose. People forget just how great they really were. When I think of D. Rose now, all I think about the first thing I think about is injuries. When I think about Penny Hardaway, the first thing I think about is shoes. I don't think about how great he was on court. I think about shoes. And that to me is due to injury. The first thing I think about Grant Hill, I think about injuries. Not for the fact that he was arguably the first LeBron James. He was arguably one of the greatest college players ever. Bill Walton's in that discussion. Grant Hill's in that discussion. But I think about injuries. And lastly, the last person on my list is Brandon Roy. Brandon Roy, when we talk about heat check, guys, Brandon Roy was the ultimate heat check. He was a scoring machine. He was Portland. If it really wasn't for Damian Lillard, and maybe Clyde Drexler, he was Portland's greatest scorer ever. If I'm forgetting somebody, let me know. But he led Portland to the playoffs multiple years, man. Portland, the same Portland, he played with a young LaMarcus Aldridge, young Nicholas Batum. And I don't remember. Yeah, he played with a young Wesley Matthews, I believe. But Brandon Roy was it, man. Brandon Roy, when we talk about players like Gilbert Arenas, Kobe Bryant, you could fit them in, like, once they're hot, they're hot. Why did I just put Gilbert Arenas in? Well, 2005-2006 Gilbert. But they were hot. Brandon Roy, you remember the epic playoff moments he had? Brandon Roy was it. The problem with Brandon Roy was knee injuries. Knee injuries forced him to retire in 2011. In fact, let me look up when Brandon Roy was drafted. He was drafted in 2006. Brandon Roy was drafted in 2006 and was forced to retire in 2011. 5 years. That really showed. And Brandon Roy, like I said, was and like all these people on this list, all these people would have been surefire Hall of Famers. Yes, Grant Hill's a Hall of Fame. Yes, T-Mac's a Hall of Fame. I don't think Derrick Rose is being. I know Penny ain't gonna be. But Brandon Roy was it. And the fact that he's pretty much forgotten. Like, he's forgotten when we talk about greatest scorers ever. And it sucks. Hell, and it's not even just, I guess, going a little tangent. It's not even just basketball. Football. Like, you remember Sterling Sharp? Sterling Sharp was one of the greatest wide receivers we had, but he kept getting injured. Bo Jackson. Like, injuries is everywhere, man. Brandon Roy, there was a time we were debating who was a better scorer between Brandon Roy and Kobe. And hell, it happened to Deron Williams too. There was a time when we were like, yo, who is better, Deron Williams or Chris Paul? But Deron Williams kept getting injured to a point where he just looked like a shell of himself for Cleveland. And in fact, he was like their worst player come playoff time. It's crazy, man. Like I said, Derrick Rose, Brandon Roy, Grant Hill, T-Mac, and Penny Hardaway are my all-NBA injury team. If I'm forgetting some, let me know. But I think those 5 careers were forever altered and forever changed by injury. Yes, there's still success in some of their careers. Like I said, T-Mac's in the Hall of Fame. Grant Hill's in the Hall of Fame. But they all should be. Brandon Roy had a chance to be in the Hall of Fame. Derrick Rose, why I think he should at least get a nod. He's not going to be in the Hall of Fame. Penny Hardaway's not going to be in the Hall of Fame. And I think injury really derailed that. Like, for real. But again, and it's not just basketball. Like I said, Sterling Sharp, Bo Jackson. It happens in every single sport. Every single sport. And it just sucks, man. It really sucks. It really sucks that something that you can't control can alter the way that people view you forever. Derrick Rose, a lot of people aren't going to remember or aren't going to think, when they first think of Derrick Rose, while they will remember the greatness that he was and what he was for Chicago and what he was, for the NBA, as in for athletic point guards, but the first thing anybody's going to think when they think of Derrick Rose, injury. First thing anybody's going to think when they think of Penny Hardaway is injury and shoes. First thing anyone's going to think about T-Mac, Hall of Fame and injuries. Brandon Roy, definitely injuries. Grant Hill, what could have been due to injuries. It's unfortunate, man. It's unfortunate. But there you have it, man. That's my all injury. I'm still mad at my nurse, man. 2 goddamn mints, man. Shouts out to her. I'm not even gonna say my school either, cause they could be listening. But yeah, man, that was this episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I want to thank you for listening. I know I said I was going to take a break last time. I'm definitely going to take a break this time. So y'all won't see me until 2019. And yes, I know I said that already, but I mean it this time. I'm definitely taking a break. I just had that on my mind. I'm gonna shut my sports brain down. I'm gonna detox. I'm gonna fast, and I will be back in 2019. So I thank you guys for listening. This is the Unpopular Podcast, and until next year, and I mean it this time. Until next year, much love.
All I know is this pain in this life and this struggle, it chose me so. All I know is that I'm stuck on this road of success, so I gotta get mine. All I know is this pain in this life and this struggle, it chose me so. All I know. Red Phantom,
They say I look like Josh Smith from Atlanta, I do. Got you. Excuse you, that nigga look like me. He from the GA and I'm M-Easy. That's game. I don't do what you niggas do. That's lame. I sue with my crew from the Bird Gang. I sue with my crew from under Young Wayne. A walking motherfucking flame, living up to my brother's name. Rocking that red shit, wasn't fucking with them other gangs. Amongst other things, they wasn't fucking with me. I ain't your average motherfucker, I'm a motherfucking G. I got some shit on my chest that I wanna get off. Got some shit for that vest that'll knock that bullshit off. Money like Madoff, killer like Adolf. Roy Holiday, how I let a fucking K off. And I don't take a fucking day off.